edition of Reviews You Can Use, brought to you by Cow Publishing Inc. Media. This is your host, the Bad Cop 69, here to bring you our first installment of our film featurette featuring a more current and recent movie known as Tron Legacy. Now I know what some of you are saying. Tron Legacy, that's a sequel? What was the first one? Tron? Oh, yeah, you mean that video about, like, that guy who, like, goes into that, like, Betamax movie and, like, battles those strange glowing guys and stuff? Yeah, man, I love that first movie, man, because, like, it's, like, so bright and colorful. I like to watch it a lot when I'm high, which is, like, pretty much every day, man. Whoa. What were we talking about again? Yes, that Tron, only no, it's not about going into old technology as in Betamax. It was going into the grid, which was a theoretical digital world that lived inside our electronics, I think. Come to think of it, I'm a tad bit sketchy on some of my Tron know-how. But Tron Legacy does sort of try to fill you in on some details and make things a little bit more accessible to fans. Now, before I start into this particular review, I will warn you that there are plenty of spoilers. In order for me to sort of address some of the more prevalent problems people have with the film that I don't personally see, I have to kind of divulge certain information. Now, if you haven't seen the movie, then turn this video off now and go watch the movie. Personally, I think it's great, but I'm going to have to get into why I think it's great by getting into some of the more popular criticisms here. So being a fan of the original movie, it's hard for some people to imagine that anybody could necessarily enjoy this film. It, on the outside, although honestly I don't know why, seems like a completely different film than the original, although in some ways, because it incorporates some of the original into the new storyline, it's almost like a retelling of the original movie, again, to some people. Personally, I didn't feel that way. And honestly, I didn't feel ripped off. I even paid for the extra stupid 3D glasses to watch this film in 3D. I think people could enjoy it without the 3D, but personally, it was almost the only way I could really see the film in my area, so I was kind of trapped on that one. But personally, I didn't feel ripped off. I felt Tron Legacy was one of the few movies that was actually made for 3D and tends to pull it off quite nicely when it does use the effect. It's not necessarily perfect, but then again, none of the 3D technologies up to this point have been. That being said, let's go into some of the more popular complaints with the movie and address it from my standpoint, which again is from somebody who is a huge fan of Tron, the original. Situation number one that I have problems with the movie with is, man, it like totally took my childhood and it touched it inappropriately, man. How could they do that? Hollywood's such scumbags, man. I just can't fathom what they were thinking. This sucks. Tron Legacy sucks because of that. Let me put on my serious glasses for this review so you can understand just how serious I am about this particular subject. As a fan of the original, and being one of the few people I know who was young enough to actually have been around when the original had hit VHS cassettes, ask your grandpa what that is, I have to say that I don't understand how you can make such a claim and make it stick. See, I felt everything from the storyline to the characters to some of the updated visuals seemed to make a lot of sense. I felt that the storyline was a natural progression of the storyline from the first one. I felt the characters were especially on canon and definitely made sense why they were included in this original and not excluded from it. They weren't ignored or just written off the face of the storyline. In fact, I enjoyed the fact that they actually used the old light cycle in the movie and still kept it in as one of the best pieces of equipment in the movie. That doesn't exactly strike me as shitting on the original canon material, if you will. Also, the fact that they brought back Stark's ship but updated it for the visuals of things worked quite well. The fact that Tron's even there and is used quite ingeniously, I might add, throughout most of the movie. Again, that is a spoiler, but you know the drill. To even the update to the recognizers, I felt was all quite fitting with the progression of the storyline, the reformatting of the digital world, thanks to user Flynn, as well as the inclusion of some of the newer characters, which in a way were kind of brought up of some of the older characters there. It's a natural progression where something just makes sense and is updated without crapping on the source material like some other movies I can mention. I love the inclusion even of some of the older dialogue. I didn't feel like it was trying to so much ride on the coattails of the success of the original, but kind of use them in a way to remind you of why we liked the original in the first place, as well as, well, it just fit. It wasn't like they just threw it out there in a cheesy way to make you go like, oh hey, that reminds me of Tron, that's so cool and funny and awesome and ha 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 ha. I mean, yes, it is a bit flashy, but it's not flash without substance. It's not, say, something that's meant to look pretty but have nothing behind it like some other movies that I could think of. That being said, the movie's not entirely without its faults. Unlike Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator 4's cameo, I didn't quite buy the younger Jeff Bridges, neither in the real world nor in the digital world, although that was more of kind of Clue, but also when they had Bridges and Clue together, didn't quite jive with me too well. Yes. The other thing that kind of struck me as bothersome to a small degree was the whole integration that the digital world and the real world were more similar than we thought kind of thing. Yes, spoiler again. And that, the two could somehow intermingle in ways that would make digital people real and so on and so forth. Which reminds me of a movie, what was it? Oh yes, The 13th Floor! Aside from that though, to be honest with you, I left the theater feeling rather refreshed and actually had a bit of my faith in Hollywood slightly restored. Not the least of which was helped by the fact that my son just wouldn't stop shutting up about the particular movie and went home to make Tron disc whooshing sounds and all that sort of rot. I found it to be very much in line enough with things that I didn't feel like there was any insult to the source material, and it was darn entertaining in the end. But not in a way of, oh, I shut my brain off and I have fun like that. In fact, I rather despise the phrase, oh, you can have fun with that movie if you turn your brain off. Granted, movies are supposed to be a bit of mindless entertainment, but, well, I'll go off on a bit of a rant if I keep on with this topic. I just simply don't agree with turning off one's mind just to enjoy a movie. That being said, let's segue into complaint number 2. Man, they ruined it. After they bent my childhood over, man, this just isn't a true sequel to Tron, man. No, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't fit, man. It's just no, man. Just no. It's not a true sequel, man. Where do I begin with that particular complaint of things? I don't quite understand where the confliction comes from on that particular comment there. The fact that NCOM is still there, the fact that Flynn is there, both young and old versions, as well as a son that gets introduced into the storyline there. And Banner's there, who was Alan Banner, who was the partner of Flynn in the original, and is still there as sort of a figurehead for the company there, who kind of has a say in things, but not really, kind of sort of thing. I'll get into that with the next sort of thing. The fact that Tron's even there, the fact that all the old machines are really pretty much there, but slightly updated, with maybe a few new machines thrown in for storytelling and other purposes there, just doesn't come off as being something that's out of place. In fact, the way that they use a lot of the old original characters while introducing some of the new characters just seems like how the story would go afterwards. And again, it just doesn't make sense to me that this is such a different movie, or this is such an out-of-place movie, that it doesn't fit with Tron, you know? You've got Jeff Bridges in many different forms, you've got the digital world. True, the situations have changed with it, but why wouldn't it change? If you have the power to restructure the world in the way that you do, wouldn't you at some point use that? Especially if your ultimate goal, after having experienced the events of the first movie, is to bring everybody into this newer world, this newer frontier, to try to solve some of humanity's ills and other things of that nature, is an intriguing idea, and again, is one that just makes sense. It's not something that's just thrown at you and you're going, I seriously don't think that that character would do that. This doesn't make sense. This is not a sequel. You know, there's a lot of updating of some of the older equipment, but it doesn't seem needless. I mean, granted, the old equipment was pretty efficient for what it could do, but as things changed and as things progressed, so too would the digital world. So, again, I honestly don't see how you can honestly make that claim and make it stick. It just doesn't add up. So get the fuck over it.